measured fashion. But let's see where we're at next week. We're always going to make the best decisions, John, for him, for the team, what the medical, opinions are. So we kind of just wanted to give you that information today, and then we can work into next week.
That was Dan Quinn yesterday. We carried it live as he was announcing that Jayden Daniels is not going to play Sunday in New York against the New York Giants. He'll be held out of that game. And I said right when we came back towards the end of the show, and I think we took a couple of calls on it, what I heard in that answer and what I watched throughout the press conference when I went back and watched it is I saw a guy that knows that they've made the decision to shut him down for the season. Now, I don't know that for sure. That's just a hunch. I could be dead wrong. I hope I am wrong, man. I want to watch this dude play. He's barely played football this year. I want to watch him play. I'm so disappointed that he's not playing Sunday. And I don't know how we got from was cleared to come back into the game to on Monday he's just sore to Wednesday the docs say he can't play Sunday to Quinn saying, yeah, we'll get to what's going to come later next week. That was for me, especially when you watch the body language throughout that press conference with some of the questions. There was an exchange with Ben at the end of it. I think they're shutting him down for the year. Good morning, everybody. Thursday, December 11th. Steve Suter's so good. I'm telling you, this was the best find for me in a long, long time. I know there's a lot of film breakdowns on the internet and a lot of people that write stuff and whatever. I've, gotten pieces of various things over the years. I mean, and been pitched by various people to do it. The best thing I ever did was take a guy like Suter, who is a true football gym rat. And real good at X's and O's and player breakdowns. And the best part about it is that he's not really a fan of the team. He used to be, but he's one of those people that, during the Snyder years, he just lost interest and it faded away. And he's much younger. And so sometimes he doesn't watch the games live. He'll watch them after the fact, but then he focuses in on the all 22. And there were a couple of reveals from him in the film breakdown yesterday that, look, I'm not paying attention to a lot of people. I haven't heard it or read it anywhere else, but there's one player for Minnesota who was so disruptive defensively, and Washington could have controlled him. And for whatever reason, they didn't. We'll talk about that this morning on the show, and you'll hear some of his film breakdown. He did not love Jayden's game, that's for sure. And he thought the defense wasn't nearly as bad as maybe others did, like yours truly. So, busy day guest-wise. We've got Denton on at 10:35 to talk some college football, and obviously we will talk about the Sharon Moore, Michigan situation. And, yesterday when Quinn announced the Jayden, that he's sitting, I was in the midst of wanting to talk about the Notre Dame situation. I'm peeved about Notre Dame's reaction to not being in the playoff. I think it comes off as petulant, sour grapes. And, there's apparently now such a pushback to Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director at Notre Dame, and his behavior after not being included in the playoff in something that actually seemed pretty obvious to everybody. It was close, and you can have an opinion that Notre Dame should have been in, but the bottom line was Miami and Notre Dame's resumes were identical, and Miami beat them head-to-head. But there's now a pushback on some of the Notre Dame stuff of not going to a bowl game. By the way, they're turning down $6 million in revenue and another month to practice. Any college football coach will tell you the best thing about these stupid bowl games is they get another month to practice, and it's great for their young players. It's like almost a spring ball before spring ball opportunity. But there are other conferences and that are starting to look at Notre Dame and actually consider potentially freezing them out of various things in terms of scheduling because of the behavior. Notre Dame's not in a conference. If people decided not to schedule Notre Dame, they'd have nobody to play. But, of course, everybody wants to schedule Notre Dame because it's a massive payday. So I doubt that would really impact their scheduling, but there are athletic directors and universities and even conferences that are pushing back and saying, you know what, maybe we'll freeze them out of scheduling in the future if they continue to, expect the sport to kowtow to them. The ACC, in which Notre Dame is affiliated in almost every sport with the exception of football, even though they play a bunch of ACC schools, the ACC took it on the chin from Notre Dame this week because they promoted their own school, their conference member, Miami, over Notre Dame, and somehow that pissed off Notre Dame. Notre Dame was bailed out of COVID with a schedule, an ACC schedule, when they had nobody else to schedule in 2020. They should be forever thankful to the ACC. There's so much there. I don't know if I'm going to have time to do everything with Denton because we're also going to look ahead to the playoffs, which begin next week. So Denton's on. We got somebody from New York to talk Giants. Charch is on today. I do have a smell test pick for tonight's game, the Thursday night game between the Buccaneers and the Kirko Falcons. So, look, I have no idea if it'll turn out this way. My gut feel watching Quinn yesterday is that he knows that there's either been a decision made or there's likely to be a decision made that Jayden's going to be shut down for the year. I think personally, it's, all part of being worried, concerned, scared that something much worse might happen in a game in which, standings-wise, meaningless, these games. And Quinn said yesterday, he was asked by Ben about the Seattle game's impact on his decision-making. The Seattle game being 38-7, 7.5 minutes to go in the game. No team in the history of the NFL has come back from 31 down in 7.5 minutes. The game was long over, and he's, dropping Jayden back, and he's got Jayden running an RPO. Now, he didn't. Cliff did, but he didn't stop it. He could have taken Jayden out of the game, or he could have had Jayden in the game handing the ball off. And he took an absolute beating, not from local media and fans, of course, but from the national media. They absolutely torched Quinn for doing that. And I think he's got some hangover from that. I think that's 100% in his mind on Sunday in Minnesota and moving forward. My position, is that if he's healthy with 5 or 6 games left, and now there are 4 games left, and I feel the same way about 4 games left, if he's healthy, he should play. He needs the reps. He needs the work. He needs, as the starting quarterback of this football team, to play some GD football. He's barely played this year. If you really add it up, it basically adds up to just around 6 football games. Because he came out, in the Dallas game, he came out in the Minnesota game, he came out at the very end of the Seattle game. It's just not enough football for year 2. So I'd like to see him play, but I don't think we're going to. Look, we may be sitting here a week from now, 2 days away from a Saturday, December 20th, 5 p.m. kickoff at Northwest Field, against the Eagles with, by the way, mostly Philadelphia fans, I'm guessing, out in Landover. And maybe he has been reinserted into the starting lineup, and they figure with 3 games left, that's still a decent opportunity. Let's go get it. Look, for me, the juice becomes a little less worth the squeeze with 3 games left. With 5 or 6 games left, my position, if you've been listening. No, he plays. He's got to play. We need him to get football reps this year. The dude's our second-year quarterback, and he's barely played football this year. And when he has played football, it hasn't been with a full deck of support. And we had that opportunity on Sunday. 4 drives into it, he's out again, pulled again. So maybe we're sitting here a week from now, and he's getting ready for the game on Saturday against Philadelphia. I don't think that'll be the case. So if that isn't, now we're down to 2 games. One of them's a season finale. My position will change with 2 or 3 games left. It'll be different than it is with 5 games left, 4 games left. Or when we first started to have this conversation, let's be fair, when we first started to have the conversation about should he or shouldn't he play again, there was still an outside chance he could be back for the Denver game, which would have meant 6 games left, more than a third of the season. When he got cleared for Minnesota, there was still nearly 30% of the season. But if he is shelved by the organization as a healthy player, I would then be full on into next year, 2026, and start having guys mysteriously show up on injured reserve. Your big pieces that you need next year, if he's not playing, Terry shouldn't play, Tunsil shouldn't play, Cosme shouldn't play, Luvu shouldn't play, Marcus Mariota shouldn't play. I know he's an unrestricted free agent, but Marcus Mariota is going to be a key piece, I would think, in terms of free agent, signings. I would assume that, the performance on Sunday and isn't going to deter them from bringing him back. He's been outstanding as a backup quarterback. He's perfect for this system. And by the way, if Cliff leaves and there's another offensive coordinator, he's comfortable here. Everybody likes Marcus Mariota, and he can play. Why risk him? Play Josh Johnson. He's a professional quarterback. He's played a lot of football. He's 39 years old. You can get a good evaluation of some of the younger players that you want to play the rest of the way. Some of the players that you haven't had enough of an opportunity to see, although you've pretty much had an opportunity to see everybody this year. Everybody that was on the practice squad to begin with, and a lot of players that got added to the practice squad and then to the main roster as the season went along. But if you're going to shelve Jayden, look, I think some of the thought of, players get upset if a healthy star sits. Why not me? Why not me? I'm a really important, part of the team too. I'm sore. In Terry's case, he's had a quad injury. Why play Terry if Jayden's not going to play? If you're at this point, we know what it looks like with Jayden and Terry. Not in year 2, but we know what it looks like from last year. We know what it looks like with Marcus and Terry. So I would go into full 2026 mode if they decide to put him on ice the rest of the year. By the way, now you've interested me. Those of you that have been saying, what are we doing here? Let's lose out and get the number 1 overall pick or get the highest possible draft pick. I've been there before. I've done that before. We've all done that and been here before in Decembers, as we have shared in the misery of this football franchise many times over. But typically for me, it's the very end of the year, and it's because, Jim Zorn's leaving, or Jay Gruden's out and there's going to be a new coach, or Ron Rivera's heading out and there's going to be a new regime, or most importantly, we still don't have a quarterback. Well, we have that. And I mentioned this on Monday. They've got 3 wins. There are only 3 teams in the league with 2 wins. They play one of them this Sunday, the Giants. The others are the Raiders and Titans. So they are still alive with 4 games left for the number 1 overall pick. Imagine what they can do with that number 1 overall pick when they don't have a need for a quarterback. If Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback of Indiana, ends up being the consensus number 1 overall, and you've got number 1 overall, you could replenish your draft stock in that spot. And I am very interested in that if 5 isn't going to play the rest of the year. So why don't you want to see all the other guys that haven't played this year? That's a fair question, because there are guys out there that just haven't played much football this year either, on offense in particular. Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown. So we've got some of those players back for the first time in a while. Will Harris is out there after missing much of the season. Yeah, I know what Terry is, though. Terry's a veteran player. He's not a year 2 player. So I would go into, if this, it sounds like Marcus is going to start on Sunday. It doesn't sound like it. They announced that he will. So put everybody out there, keep your fingers crossed. But if you decide to tell us on Monday of next week or Wednesday of next week, and it would probably be Tuesday because it's a Saturday game, on Tuesday next week, the Eagles, and maybe they then tell you, he's not going to play the rest of the year. That'll be an interesting press conference for sure. Then I think we have the IR mysteries start popping up. Josh Johnson becomes the starter against the Eagles, Cowboys, and Eagles. Tanking doesn't really happen with the players, as most of you know. Like, players aren't going to go out there when their jobs are on the line and they're playing to impress and they're playing for their next contract and try to lose. You tank by decision-making on the personnel that you put on the field that gives you a lesser chance, which is kind of what they've been doing all year anyway, just not intentionally. So I would look at that, especially with your truly valuable pieces. And some of, those guys have been hurt already this year. There's no reason that Terry's quad should be at risk if Jayden's not out there in meaningless football games. So this time next week, I think I will be joining many of you who are already aboard the lose-out train because I'm going to become a loser next week.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah. A few other things. I think, a caller mentioned one of these things yesterday. Actually, I think we had two calls because I thought they were interesting. I think some of these things are reaches, but I think they're worth mentioning anyway. We had a caller call in and say, that giant stadium turf is a problem for everybody around the league. They hate it. And they do. It ranks way up there, right, on the list of the fields and the turfs that have created the most non-contact injuries. So maybe they have a concern about that. And then, if you're into weather like I am, it is going to be brutally cold around here and in the Northeast over the weekend, in particular on Sunday, where the temperature at game time in the Meadowlands is going to be like 25 degrees with wind and maybe even some snow. So the weather along with the turf, I wonder if that was in consideration. I hope it wasn't, but I say I hope it wasn't with respect to the weather. All right. The turf, if there's actually a legitimate concern, okay. Maybe. And then didn't another caller suggest to us, or did I read this somewhere else? Or maybe I was talking to John Keim about it and I thought about it. But with no Zach Ertz the rest of the way, this is not the reason. It's just, I'm just mentioning it. But Zach Ertz has become, he is the most reliable, along with Terry, route runner, most trustworthy of the guys. And he's really a safety blanket. He has been for Jayden since day one last year, and for Marcus too. I mean, he caught 10 balls, targeted 13 times against Denver. Yeah. One other just quick note on this topic, and that is that if they make the decision, and maybe they've made it already, I don't think it's like a big deal, personally, unless it's ownership saying this is what you're going to do. And I don't think that would be the case. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but I am interested in who's driving the decision. My guess would be it's Adam Peters, as sort of the general manager and the forward-thinking, voice and brain in the organization. My guess is it's a lot of people. It's Quinn. It's the front office. It's ownership. But what you saw yesterday, I thought, was the first indication of what's coming. It was a tell for me. And I hope I'm wrong because I want to see Jayden play. Not hurt. But I think maybe by next week he'll be fine, or it'll just still be sore. And everybody's sore this time of year. All right. If you want to weigh in on this, 301 230 0980, 301 230 0980. Did you hear what I heard, which is, I think, a shutdown for the season's coming? And then do you agree with me that if that's the case, they should really, over the final three games of the season, they should start it this week, but I don't think they're going to. We should really start thinking about the top guys being, shelved as well. No reason for Terry McLaurin, who's had a quad injury and has missed a ton of games this year, to go out and injure the quad again or potentially get even more seriously injured. They need him, obviously, next year, and he's under contract. Next year is the 1-year contract extension. That's what he got extended for, is next year. 301 230 0980. I've got a good what do you got when we come back as well. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. My what do you got today is about Michigan, but not Michigan football. I'll save some of that, and we'll talk to Denton about the short 10 to 12 minutes. It's Michigan basketball, college basketball. If you haven't been paying attention, Michigan is 9-0. They're ranked number 2 in the country. Listen to some of their recent results. 4 of their last 9 wins have come by at least 40 points. 7 of their last 9 have come by at least 25. They beat top 10 Gonzaga and San Diego State by 40. They beat Auburn by 30 and Villanova by 28. Michigan's 4-0 against the top 45 Ken Pom teams with an average margin of victory, 30.8 points. It's been a long time since we've seen a start to a college basketball season like the one Michigan has under Dusty May, who's now in his second season in Ann Arbor. Second or third? I think it's second season. They transformed the roster, and they are killing people. And they come to College Park Saturday night to face a Maryland team that is struggling mightily. Meantime, another basketball, what do you got? The Oklahoma City Thunder last night in this, NBA Cup. I don't know if you're following it. They are in the quarterfinal round of this in-season NBA Cup, and they played a quarterfinal game last night again, and they beat the Suns 138-89. So that's a 49-point win. They led by as many as 53 points in the game, and Oklahoma City is now 24-1 on the season. And they basically don't play close games. In their last 10, they've only had 2 that finished within single digits. There was an 8-point win, and there was a 4-point win over that same Phoenix Suns team. The Thunder are definitely in play to break the Golden State 73 regular season win total from 2015-2016. In fact, if they want at 24-1, they might be able to win 80. Their only loss was to the Portland Trailblazers way back at the beginning of the season. By the way, in that game, Denny Avdia went for 26, 10, and 9. He is having a borderline all-star season in Portland, averaging 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists per game for the Trailblazers. All right, 301-230-0980. This is kind of a continuation. We just didn't get to a lot of calls at the end of yesterday's show after Dan Quinn talked about, not playing Jayden this Sunday, and then intimated that in terms of beyond Sunday against the Giants, we'll take that to next week. I heard and then watched it and said, he done. He gone for the year. And if that's true, I'm now in the mode of 2026. Like, there's no reason for your key stars, and you don't have a lot of them, for them to actually risk anything in the final 4 games. I think they're going to Sunday, but the final 3 when we get maybe a week from now official news that Jayden's been shut down. Again, just to be clear, I don't know anything for sure. It's a hunch. I think it's a strong hunch, but it's just a hunch. Let's start with Harry in Landover. Harry, go ahead.
What's going on, Kevin? Thanks for taking my call, buddy.
Sure, Harry.
Hey, so look, I got a couple of things. I'm not the quitter mindset kind of a guy, but what I'm saying is sometimes it's all right. So the Seattle game, you know how it was kind of like, all right, look, man, the way this game is going, the way it's been, just get them out of the game. I feel like this season is a version of that game, meaning for Jayden, it's like, hey, look, man, everything that's been able to happen bad has happened. Like, don't keep leaving him in for his leg to actually get broke or something worse on the back end. Like, just call it a day. But then my second thing is, one of the few bright silver linings of having a bad NFL season is if you have a bad enough one, you get a high pick.
You get a last place schedule
down the stretch. Well, what I'm saying is we've had the bad season. Don't lose the benefit and then win 3 games down the stretch, and now you're picking 11th instead of 5th, 4th, second or whatever we were.
Yeah,
no.
I think the conversation. I'm with
you.
you. The conversation for me tends to change as we get to the final game or two. Usually because nobody's coming back from that season, but everybody I think is coming back for next season. And so it's a little bit different. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm with you on that. I feel that way, but I didn't feel that way when there was an opportunity for Jayden with his offense to play 5 football games. I am now.
I'm with you.
Yeah. All right.
Just didn't. Again, the last 5 games, I do agree he needs to work. He does. But does he need to work at the expense of now he's got to miss, I don't know, 8 to 12 weeks starting the season because he still took another injury? And
yeah, look, if we don't see him the rest of the year, Harry, we won't see him until the opener unless they change their preseason philosophy. We won't see him until the opener next year. And yeah, that's kind of the point, is that this year never really got started for him. It never really got started for the team, but it really never got started for him in the offense. And every single time he came back after a game or a couple of games, there's a rust factor. There's, and not to mention, all due respect to those of you who don't think about things, to the nth degree, every single time he came back, it was against like an unbelievable defensive football team that I thought they were unprepared for on Sunday in particular. But thanks for the call, Harry. Let's go to James. James, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, love your show, man. I'm a little selfish, man. I bought some half of the season tickets because the guy said they suck. So I got them for 50% off. So I like to see the best players, man. If he's healthy, he got to play, man.
Yeah, well,
baby, man. It's football, man.
Well, it's not his decision.
I know, but I'm just saying the coaches, the owner. I don't care who it is. If I was the owner, he'd play if he's healthy. If the doctor clear him, he got to play. I don't care if it's 1 game, 4 game, or 3 games. Plus, I my money's worth.
No, I hear you, and that's the view of somebody who's paid, even though you got a discount. It sounds like for tickets.
Right.
My mindset would be there is a difference between 5 games, 6 games, 4 games versus 2 games or 3 games. I do think there's a difference in a season like this one. But I understand your point. Thanks, James. Let's go to Ian. Ian, go ahead.
Kevin, I heard the exact same thing you did. I think this is self-preservation for everybody. He's afraid that if Jayden gets catastrophically hurt, there'll be questions like the Shanahan's got with RG3. He doesn't want to go through that. I think if Jayden doesn't play, there could be like, well, we didn't have our team. Give me a chance next year. Because if they rolled Jayden back, which I think they should have done if he's healthy, and went 3-14, the question would be, what's the optimism for next year? Why are you back if you have everybody on offense healthy except for, say, an aging Zach Ertz or an injury-prone Austin Eckler? And so instead, by pulling your team, you kind of say, hey, give me a chance for next year. I think that's cowardly. I think it's silly. And again, what's the difference for next year? You can get a bunch of new offensive players.
Well, the difference is you're playing games that matter technically in the standings. That's the big difference, Ian. You understand that. I would say to you that the self-preservation 2-parter from you, part 1, yes, I'm with you. I think the Seattle game spooked them. I really do. I think that he took such a pounding, justifiably so. He had to come out and admit that he made a mistake. And I think that's weighed on him, even though he said yesterday it didn't. I don't believe that. But the self-preservation part 2 about like somehow if these games, then we can't go 3-14 and I could potentially lose my job. He's not losing his job. Even if they had lost out, he's not losing his job this year. But there's not a self-preservation part there, I don't think.
But you keep saying that. But here's my question to you. Like you said on Monday and Tuesday, the Minnesota game was different. If the rest of the season looked like that with Jayden Daniels at quarterback, why should the head coach come back? Why should the offensive coordinator come back? Why should the GM come back when all his offensive players can't do anything?
Because
that's
the
my point
because
is-
and you hate this answer because the entire season was derailed by one thing more than anything else. Injuries,
Yes, but
period.
now-
And you're not
but
healthy,
Kevin,
and
but now-
you're so bad on defense, and that's not going to improve with players coming back
we're
over
with
the
you-
last
we're with
4 or
you
5
on-
games of the season.
Okay, we can agree to disagree on the injuries. We can agree.
Well, it's
to
just
disagree,
it's
on the
ridiculous to disagree with that.
Kevin, let's focus on the next 4 games. If you had everyone on offense like you did at Minnesota and you scored 0 points,
Yeah.
what would that tell you for the optimism
It's
for next year?
I mean, again,
tells you that this
you're
team
very black
sucks
and white,
on offense.
Ian. I'm not. I'm more
that's
gray,
the
and I
result.
would need more
Kevin.
information. But I would lead towards it wouldn't be very good, but it wouldn't cost him his job. It would make this seat much warmer at the beginning of next season. That's what I would say.
So again, this process flow of you credit him for last year, fine. But then this year it's injuries. But when everybody is back
But everybody isn't back, Ian.
struggling.
They're not back. They've
Everybody
got the
is back
worst
on
defense
offense.
in football right now. They're
What
playing
about the
dudes that
offense? You scored
you got
0
Javon
points.
Kinlaw and Deron Payne playing D end. I mean, it's an absolute
Kevin,
sieve
how about the
defensively.
offense?
You got no prayer. Would I like to
How
see a more
about the
competitive
offense?
output? Yeah, I'd much rather see a more competitive
How
output.
about
And them
the
not
offense?
scoring on Sunday was hideous, but it wasn't good. It was not a good preparation for a pass rush that they just could not block up, including something I'm going to get to. I got to get to a break. Those of you, I see you on hold. I'm not going to be able to do it right now, maybe later in the show. Denton's coming up next. But I'm telling you, Suter pointed out something in his film breakdown that I'm gonna talk about, and I'm going to play some of his film breakdown as well. But there was one simple thing that he said he can't believe Cliff Kingsbury didn't do. And it was disruptive to the offense. One player disrupted it on 5 different plays. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.
Pick up your book bags. Grab your notebooks. It's time to go on campus with Denton.
Hey, give me my theme music.
Denton Day joins us as he does every Thursday in this spot during football season to talk some college football. Of course, Denton is the host of many college football programs on SiriusXM and the host of the Commanders pre- and post-game shows on this station and on 106.7 The Fan at the Denton Day on X and on Twitter. So the big sports story of yesterday and today outside of this market is that Sharon Moore, the Michigan head coach, was fired, and he's currently in custody in a Michigan county jail as a suspect in an alleged assault. He was fired for what the school said, quote, was an inappropriate relationship with a staff member, closed quote. I was unaware of you follow this sport so much more closely than me in terms of these kinds of things. Without, it doesn't seem like there was anything substantial or reported, but there apparently have been rumors about Sharon Moore for a while now. Is that true?
Yeah, there have been rumors, but nobody would address what the rumors were. It was always like this underlying thing when you listen to some of the bigger national shows and podcasts and people that cover the sport. They're like, yeah, like we think Michigan's going to be open soon. Like, I don't think Sharon Moore is going to be there for forever, but no one would say exactly why that was. So then when you found out the news yesterday, you're like, all right, well, it's another guy that was, sleeping around with somebody on his staff. And then you can make some jokes about that. And then it very quickly became like, oh, this is way more serious because of the things that transpired after he was fired. So a terrible situation for Michigan, and they're now they're on the open market for the first time and truly for the first time in like 10 years because they were never really open.
Let's talk about the football ramifications because the reporting will take care of all of the other. Who are the candidates?
Everyone. Literally everyone. The nice thing from a football perspective for Michigan is that they're not paying a dime for Sharon Moore to be fired, which means they have money to blow.
Yeah, he was fired with cause. Yes.
Yeah, he's fired with cause, so they don't have to pay a buyout. So they now have money to blow if they want to go buy somebody out of a contract elsewhere. And that could be a number of guys this season. A name that I've heard early on is Eli Drinkwitz from Missouri. If they want to go make a phone call to Dan Lanning, who will not go take the job, but they could make that phone call. If they want to call Kalen DeBoer, who likely will not take the job, but they can go and they can make that phone call. I would guess that it would be someone coming from a middle tier school. Jed Fish at Washington could be a really good option, but my guess is it would be somebody on that plane that is a good coach that has had success at other programs, but you're not. I think it's too late into the coaching cycle to take a massive swing, but there just aren't a lot of massive swings there to be taken right now.
So three names that I wrote down to talk to you about. Number one is Jesse Minter head coach material, the defensive coordinator with Harbaugh when he was at Michigan and now the defensive coordinator with the Chargers, and he's doing a great job as a DC? I don't know enough about him. Is he a head coach kind of a personality?
In the NFL, yeah, he has a show cause. So if he does come back, he has to wait until April. I mean, this would be my word of advice if Michigan were to ask. Separate from the Harbaugh tree. You don't need to have a guy that was connected with Harbaugh. You did that with Sharon Moore, and
fair enough.
Harbaugh made it really tough to not do that. Like he pretty much set up so Sharon Moore was going to be the guy. You have an opportunity now to separate from that, so I would not go.
That makes sense to me. I didn't know that. What about Matt Campbell? Is his deal done with Penn State or not?
Yeah, he had his introductory press conference, so that deal's done. He's been doing a bunch of press this week, so that's.
By the way, do you think Penn State or Michigan's a better job?
Michigan.
Or the same,
Michigan by like a country mile. Yeah,
you think so?
They are loaded. Yeah, they are loaded with money. I mean, they spent $10 million on the drop of a dime to get a freshman quarterback. They have an awful lot of money. So Michigan would be, if you were making a list of jobs, certainly this offseason, they would have been 2 behind LSU. You might say that they're a top 5 job in the country with, Ohio State, LSU, Texas, maybe Bama, and then Michigan being the 5.
I mean, I think Ohio State's a better job than Michigan.
I do too. Did I not mention Ohio State in that group? I should have
maybe
mentioned
you
Ohio
did.
State in that
Maybe
group.
you did. Let's just say they strike out on like Kalen DeBoer, and who else did you mention? Dan Lanning. And, and now you're into, the Manny Diaz's of the world from Duke or somebody like him, or Jed Fish, as you mentioned, from Washington. I don't think there's any ties between this person and Michigan, but do you think there'd be any interest in Cliff Kingsbury?
I think there would be. Cliff is really respected
Very
in
much
NFL
so.
circles. And, I know this year hasn't exactly been the best in terms of fan perspective of Cliff Kingsbury, but he's been really good over his career with quarterbacks. And what has the one thing where Michigan has struggled immensely over the past 2 years? Quarterback. So if there's anybody that's going to get Bryce Underwood to perform well, and Bryce Underwood's on an NIL deal that pretty much links him to Michigan for at least another year. I know it's the age of free agency, so you could probably get out of that, but do you really want to get out of an deal that's rumored to be $10 million? No. So if you want to develop your quarterback, Cliff would be a really, really good option. And because you're kind of late in the college football calendar, he might make a lot of sense.
What jobs are still available, any?
Michigan.
That's it, right? Everybody else is hired.
Yeah, Penn State they were late to the party because we had jobs open like that Kentucky job, Michigan State job. They were open and then they were filled within hours. Penn State was.
Let me just tell you, Penn State should have gone to Matt Campbell first. He's a really good coach.
They should have. I don't know what took so long. Maybe he was getting cold feet. I don't know what took so long, but it felt like he was always going to be the option. He's one of the first, 4 or 5 names rumored, and then it just took him 2 months.
It's interesting. One of the surprising hires of this cycle was Pat Fitzgerald, the former Northwestern coach at Michigan State. He'd have been a hell of a coach for Michigan.
He would have. And that was one of the ones, like they fired their coach and then had him, in 3 hours, and he was their guy.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to Sunday and the bracket unveil and the Notre Dame exclusion and then the Notre Dame AD reaction. Give me your, what you've been saying on the air. It's on what transpired. Starting with, do you think the committee got it right?
No, I don't. I think Notre Dame should have been in. If you're judging based off of the criteria that they use and the need to have a conference, 5 conference champions, then yes, Notre Dame was on the outside looking in. But somehow, you lose the ACC conference champion, but still get an ACC at-large in there. Really, this is the ACC's fault because they should have just put Miami in the championship game rather than having Duke. But this is the first time, and maybe this will be the only time, but this is the first time where a team that is on the outside looking in had a legitimate chance to be competitive, more so than some of the teams, most of the teams that are going to be actually in the dance. So that's a pretty frustrating element of this. I've always been of the favor of you don't need to be super inclusive in a playoff. I get it's a fun story on Twitter to have a bunch of G5 teams in there, but the college football playoff should be about determining who is the best team. And I don't know that inclusivity breeds excellence in that regard. So I think Notre Dame has a right to be upset. I think they should have been in. I don't know that they have a right to be as upset as they are because they have thrown just a complete tantrum that's been childish.
Yeah, I agree with you that Notre Dame could have won the whole thing, and I don't think Miami can. And even though earlier in the season, I was a big believer in Miami. Early in the season, when you and I were doing this, I think at one point we both said, or maybe it was with Stanford Steve, Miami's the best team in the country. But Carson Beck threw too many picks in 2 different losses to SMU and Louisville. And by the way, that's why they dropped so far back, and then they didn't get close to Notre Dame until, last week with BYU in between. But that's another story. I think Notre Dame would have been a better representative in terms of a national championship contender, and I think they could have won the whole thing if they had been in it. With that said, based on the criteria that the committee is charged with, I think they got it right. It was close across the board in every key metric, and there was a head-to-head, and Miami won it.
Yeah, they did. Well, I would say Notre Dame had a better chance than Miami of winning, than Alabama of winning, than Oklahoma of winning, than
I agree.
Maybe even A&M of winning. My issue was that Alabama was not punished, but BYU was punished. If you're going to punish BYU, they dropped a
BYU got hammered twice by Texas Tech. Alabama beat Georgia in Athens, as you know, in the regular season. That's a big differentiator.
But they've looked, if you're factoring
I know,
they've
terrible.
looked awful. Ty Simpson hasn't been good in a month, and they can't run the ball. So, they're going to get, that Oklahoma rematch. Maybe they find themselves again, but I highly doubt it. I mean, that could end up being
favored in that game.
A beatdown.
Bama's a 1.5 point favorite.
It was 2.5 when the line first opened. So
I don't know what I was expecting from that, but these two teams, I don't think either one of them can win the national championship, and Indiana will likely smoke either one of them in the next round. I mean, it's actually going to be
Oklahoma. I'd love to see that Oklahoma defense against Indiana and their offense. Too. That would be a ton of fun. But I think you're right. Indiana's going to beat down either one of those teams because they can't score. If you can't throw and you can't run, it makes it very difficult to play offense. You got to be able to do at least one of those things. There are other teams that, Ole Miss isn't the best running team in the world, although they do have some really good players, but they can throw. They have some dynamic pieces on offense. Neither Bama or Oklahoma has any sort of dynamic players on offense right now.
This football season, obviously it's a nuts-o season in the NFL, but we've seen kind of the resurgence of unbelievable, exciting, shut down, overwhelmingly suffocating defense in both sports, in both, college and in the NFL. In the NFL right now, I mean, if Houston gets in, good luck if you're the rest of the AFC. Oklahoma, it is so much fun to watch them. They swarm defensively and are so well coached. I mean, Venables is great. Ohio State and Indiana are both incredibly fun to watch defensively. Georgia, some of the hitting in that Bama game early on, even though Bama didn't have a chance. And we'll see if in this day and age of football, we saw it last year in the NFL playoffs. Philadelphia was led by one of the best defenses we've seen in recent years, and they plowed through the postseason and dominated the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that Oklahoma can do that, but what you said, I want to see. I want to see Oklahoma's defense against Indiana's offense. That would be an interesting matchup. By the way, Norman will be insane for that first playoff game a week from tomorrow night.
Crazy. And all the things that you just mentioned, what do most of those teams, I mean, Philly's like the one where they don't because it felt like that was a Jalen Carter-led defense, but though they did have good players, all of those teams have really good edge guys. So I need Max to clip that and then send that to the command. You need a good edge guy to make a great defense, and all of the teams have really good edge guys that play good defense, at least in the college level. And these guys are going to be available in the first round. So, take some notes. If you're a Commanders fan, you should be watching Texas defense to see David Bailey. You should be watching Ohio State to see Arbel Reese. You should be watching the Indiana defense. Miami to see Ruben Bain. There's a lot of really good edge guys that are going to be playing in the college football playoff, which is exciting.
Right, and maybe from number 1 or number 2, they can trade down 4 or 5 spots, pick up a bunch of picks, and still get that player. All right. We'll preview the games in more detail next weekend, and I'll get your national championship, matchup and your pick. But I just want to end with this. Do you, what you said, I do agree with you. I'm okay with 1G5. But this is not the NCAA tournament where you have 68, and there's the magic of the 3-14, the 5-12 upset. This is a 12-team field, so I'm okay with one team, Tulane. And by the way, we've had some teams. That Boise last year, you had Ashton Genty, and everybody gave them a shot. But of the two, Tulane or Madison, if I told you one of them lost by just say 2 touchdowns, which of the two could actually keep it somewhat competitive?
Yeah, that's probably going to be Tulane. James Madison has a good defense, and the way they played in their championship game defensively was really impressive. And they have the Sun Belt Player of the Year at quarterback, a guy that came off of a big knee injury, Alonzo Barnett. The problem is he can't throw very well, or at least accurately. And when you're going up against really good defenses and really talented, really fast players, you have to be accurate with the football. And Oregon is the personification of fast on defense. So I think they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Tulane is the one I would give the best chance to. They have played Ole Miss already. They got beat up pretty bad by Ole Miss, but their quarterback is Jake Retzlaff, who played at BYU last year. So he has, Power 4 experience, and he can kind of handle the speed and the physicality. So I don't think either one of them stands a chance. In fact, I have laid the number with both Ole Miss and Oregon already. But I think Tulane has the best of the two options, which is unfortunate because I want to see the team from Virginia perform well.
And Tulane's coach, John Sumrall, is headed to Florida, but is going to coach Tulane in the playoff, as will Chesney at JMU, who's headed to UCLA. But no Lane Kiffin. And at this point, maybe that story is going to be massively trumped by the one in Ann Arbor. Thanks. I'll talk to you later.
Yep, see ya.
Denton Day, everybody. We'll get the Giants' perspective and where they are really on their season and what's coming next year in terms of a head coach. We'll do that next. Expected to be joined by Paul Dottino from WFAN in New York to talk Giants. He covers the Giants for the Fan in New York. I did see this on Football Insight, just the right now current, I guess, updated under center percentages versus other, pistol and shotgun. Washington clearly at the bottom of the league. 8.3% of the snaps have been under center, 69.8% shotgun, 21.9% pistol. The pistol's interesting because there are only a few teams that really use the pistol. Atlanta does, Miami does, and Washington does. Not many teams. The pistol being different, right? The running, it's about a yard closer to the center, but the back is actually behind the quarterback. So the back can actually turn, and you can get the same effect or almost the same effect of play action and, losing the ball when you turn for that play fake as you do under center. But yeah, Washington dead last. Do we have Paul yet?
Not yet. The phone's still not working for some reason.
Okay. It's all right. We'll figure it out. There was you guys sent me this thing from The Ringer yesterday. I think we talked about it briefly, but I actually went and did kind of the work on this. So it's back of the envelope math. But there's this, thing that was on The Ringer yesterday about Jayden Daniels' scrambling percentage. That Daniels' scrambling rate is up by 3 percentage points over last season. That's a number Washington wanted to bring down after Daniels scrambled on nearly 13% of his dropbacks as a rookie. His scramble rate is up to 15.7% in 2025. So, we're not talking about a dramatic increase, but it's an increase nonetheless. But there's one game that skews the results to a higher percentage than last year. And it's the Seattle game that we've talked about a lot. He basically dropped back and he scrambled on 30% of his dropbacks. That's 13% more than in any other game in terms of scramble percentage. And, I think we've talked about this ad nauseum. The Seattle game was the game in which they'll tell you we had a group of receivers out there that just didn't really know what they were doing. They were running the wrong routes. They were running to the wrong depths. And they got manhandled by Seattle. It was one of the real bad offenses of the year. So just keep that in mind. I know this alarmed everybody. First of all, the dude's played 6 games. All right, so we've got a small sample size for Jayden in year 2, number one. Number 2 is the Seattle game, that one game in which basically he had a bunch of practice squad receivers out there for him. That game really skewed that scramble percentage higher, more than any other game by miles. All right, we do have Paul. All right, good. Paul Dottino from the gold standard in sports talk radio stations, WFAN. One of my all-time favorite listens from back in the day when I was up there a ton. Paul covers the Giants for the Fan. He is on X and on Twitter at GiantsWFan, WFAN, if you want to give him a follow. So, both of our seasons have gone sideways, but there were no expectations for your season. So the disappointment level here is, through the roof, although we're used to it around here. But I want to go back to when you guys, crushed Philadelphia on Thursday night, were playing very well and had that big lead in Denver. Is there any thought that just that one game completely sent the team into a tailspin?
Well, that was probably the final straw. To be honest, they've had 5 games this year where they have lost in the final 5 minutes or in overtime.
Right.
So I can't look at one game and say that one game did it. But it was kind of like the icing on the cake, to be honest with you, because they have been the most unclutched football team that I have ever seen in any bottom line. And I don't think there's any doubt. The defensive coordinator paid for it with his job. Shane Bowen was, as you know, let go a couple of weeks back. he did not do a very good job when it came down to crunch time. And his passive philosophy hurt the team. So it's been a confluence of events, but ultimately, when push comes to shove, it's been a season-long problem. It wasn't just one game.
Yeah, I think about, because early on in the year, Paul, I was like, the Giants are not that bad. They've got a decent roster. Russell stinks. Let's see what happens when Dart gets in there. But I remember you guys lost a game at New Orleans, and the only reason I remember it is because I had the Saints plus the points. But there were a bunch of turnovers in that game, and that's why you lost that one. Then you beat Philly, and you had Denver up by all those points. Look, we've lost 5 games by 21 games. You should have beaten Detroit. You should have beaten Chicago. Should have beaten Denver. I mean, it's been at least a competitive, horrible season.
I like the way you said that.
Well, it's true. You guys have been in, like you said, you've been in so many games this year.
Well, ultimately, if you wound up, grading only 3/4 of football every Sunday,
well,
the Giants would be fighting in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. Look, ultimately, the troubles in the final few minutes with the defensive coordinator were a big issue, but let's not kid ourselves. When Brian Daboll made the change to Jackson Dart at quarterback in week 4, they had been 0-3. They had given away, they could have won the Washington game. Then they gave away the Dallas game. That was one of the 5 charity games that we talk about all season. And so at this point now, then they lose to Kansas City, so they're 0-3. Daboll decides, obviously, at that point, that the season doesn't look very promising. So he decides that let's just go with a rookie and say, the heck with it, and let's try to ride the kid and see what we can get out of him as a rookie, because he's supposed to be the next franchise quarterback. So he makes the move. But at that point, everybody who knows anything about football knows that rookie quarterbacks, it's a shot in the dark. It's a bolt of lightning if you're going to have great success right out of the box. So I think right then and there, you kind of knew, and I'll be frank with you, I thought the Giants were an 8-win team based on their roster in August. I really felt that. I said, okay, they're going to be 8-9. Maybe they get a couple of breaks and go 9-8. But they're an 8-win team. Probably maybe 7-10. But they're not going to be any worse than that. But once he made the change to the rookie quarterback, you had to realistically understand that they were going to win less games. What we didn't expect is that Dart would be so good out of the box, and that the defense, which was highly heralded, would absolutely fall into a big bowl of quicksand.
Yeah, you look at that, the players on that defense, and you would have expected more from it. We're talking to Paul Dottino from WFAN in New York. So let's talk about Jackson Dart. What are the early thoughts? It's so early, his rookie year. He's had some games that we've all watched that have been exciting, and he looks the part at times. But what do you guys think through 8 or 9 starts?
He's mature beyond his years. Rookie quarterbacks usually don't have this kind of poise, this kind of composure. Some guys are cocky and they'll have confidence, but this is not a cocky confidence. It's a mature confidence. He acts as though he's been in the league 5 or 6 years. He's really impressive. And he doesn't make the same mistake twice. His biggest flaw, really, what it comes down to, his biggest flaw is that he does tend to hold the ball a little too long, as most rookie quarterbacks will do, because they want to salvage the play. So he takes too many sacks.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, the other item, which isn't so much a flaw, it's just a philosophy. He wants to run too much. Durability is so important in this league. Eli Manning taught everybody in New York how important it is to be available each and every week. And Jackson Dart, through his days at USC and at Ole Miss, never listened to Lane Kiffin and ran around much too much. And that's just being reckless. The Giants were hoping, John Gruden before the draft, when Gruden had him in the quarterback school on television, he cursed at him and said, "Can't, blankety blank do that stuff. You're going to get killed. You're not going to do your team any good." Well, he didn't listen then, and he doesn't listen now. He still does take too many risks. It's one thing to run as a quarterback when it's a fourth down, or if it's late in the game and you need to get that play. It's a have to have it play. Fine. If you gotta take off, take off. But other than that, you can. And right now, that's still something that he hasn't learned yet.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with a little bit of the same thing. You know, Jayden kind of treats 1st and 10 in the first quarter as if it's 4th and 3 in overtime, and he's got to. They you know, those young quarterbacks, they've got to think about those things differently. What about the head coach? Where does the Mara family go for the next head coach?
Well, the general consensus is that, you know, that's 4 head coaches that have failed. 3 of them had never been head coaches before. Pat Shermer had failed in Cleveland, and he was the only one with prior head coaching experience that they had brought in of the 4 that have failed. So the general consensus is they'll go back to someone who has head coaching experience. Now, you know, the rumor mill is hot right now about Freeman from Notre Dame,
right,
maybe coming up from the college ranks and trying to make the jump to the NFL. Look, there's certainly a very strong affection for Notre Dame from the Giants organization, so I could understand where that rumor may have started. I don't know that there's any truth to that, but I think what I caution everybody in New York about is, listen, you don't know what's going to be on the shelf at the end of the season. How do we know that John Harbaugh is not going to get canned? How do we know that Stefanski's not leaving Cleveland? How do we know that Mike Tomlin won't get fired from Pittsburgh? The list or the guys who are on the coach's menu right now will not be the same as they will be in another month or so. So I tell people, stop trying to predict it, because some really attractive candidate could pop free in a month. And you're going to be sorry if you lock yourself into somebody today.
Well, the other thing, too, Paul, is that the Giant job, because of Jackson Dart and because of a lot of the talent, is going to be sought after. This is going to be a big-time opening this year. Maybe not as much in other years, but this will be do you agree? This will be a very attractive, you know, available job during this carousel offseason.
Well, it will be for a guy who's got confidence in himself, who says, hey, they got a quarterback. They got Malik Neighbors coming back off of injury.
Right.
The offensive line appears to have been fixed. I mean, at the very worst, you'd have to grade the Giants' offensive line as average right now. And that is so much better, miles better than they've been over the last decade. So those are all attractive points. And defensively, we know they've invested the second most amount of dollars of any team in the NFL on defense, and they've got some really talented players who obviously fell victim to a poor scheme this year. So if you believe that you can fix that and get the right defensive coordinator in here, there's a lot of reasons to think, well, the Giants will be a double-digit win and a playoff team next year. You could see that turnaround. And from worst to first is a very, very easy and reasonable thing to think. However, at the same time, there's no patience here. People in New York are fed up, disgusted with the fact that the Giants have been so bad for the last decade or so. So if you come in here and you fail, boy, let me tell you, that microwave gets hot really, really fast.
I'd also suggest to you that worst to first, that could be our team instead of your team next year. That's because there's going to be a battle for the worst, and this Sunday's game may tell the tale on that. One last one, Paul, and I'll let you go. Burns has been good statistically, pressure rates, etc. We know what Dexter Lawrence is. Tell me about Abdul Carter's rookie year.
He's got to learn 2 things. First, he's got to learn how to be more of a professional. He still is a bit immature. Was he 21 years old? You know, and like many rookies, they got to grow up. They got to understand accountability and responsibility when they get to the league. There's still something to be learned there. That's quite honest. You know, he's gone through some bumpy roads in terms of the accountability factor. However, as a player, tremendous talent. He, like many others, though, they find out quickly when they get to the NFL, especially these pass rushers, you got to have not just one move or 2 moves. You better have 5 or 6. because in this league, the tackles have seen it all. And you have to have a full toolbox, a repertoire of moves that you can use to set these guys up in the first quarter, in the second quarter, and then bring out a move they haven't seen on 3rd and 15 in the third quarter. So he needs to learn more moves, and quite frankly, he needs to get a lot stronger. When he was at Penn State, he could pretty much do what he wanted against people in that conference, and it's a good conference, don't get me wrong, but he needs to add to his power quotient. It's all there for him. He just has to take it up to the next level and are in this league. But, just coming out of the box, he just wasn't physically or emotionally, I think, quite ready to ring the bell right away.
Thanks for doing this, Paul. Really appreciate it. Thanks. Take care.
Appreciate it, my man. Happy holidays.
Yep. Happy holidays to you too. Paul Dottino with WFAN in New York. Charch will jump on with us next. Charch is with us every Thursday. I know it's fantasy football playoff time, and I know that because many of you have tweeted and emailed me various questions for Charch. We'll see if we get to some fantasy talk. We don't always work our way in that general direction because I think we should start today with what happened on Sunday in Minneapolis because I told you there was a chance our defense could resurrect J.J. McCarthy's early portion of his career, and they did.
I was skeptical. I did not think anybody could resurrect J.J. McCarthy's career, but he looked good. Thank you very much, Commanders.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. So at least for a week. Now, the bad part is, are you just giving us a bad read on a bad quarterback? And that's possible. False hope. It's the worst place to be in quarterback development is when you're not sure what you've got and you can't move on because God forbid you have actual competition for your starting quarterback. We here in Minnesota, we got to find out if J.J. McCarthy is really as good as the Commanders let him look on Sunday, or if that was really just the Commanders. And we'll find out over these final 4 games. But we appreciate that. I did not see a 31-0 blowout coming. And as I'm sure you and your fans saw, it was the first consecutive week reversal of shutouts since 1992.
You're crazy. It was also the longest drive, the 19-play, 98-yard, 12-minute, 1-second drive for the Vikings this century. I mean, you guys started at the 2-yard line and you gave it back to us on Tuesday, basically. That was unbelievable. You just said something, though, because it really, the worst position to be in is not knowing about a quarterback, a young quarterback in particular. That, oh, by the way, you moved up a spot to draft number 10 overall. This is where I think fans have no clue because you've got to be inside that building. There's so much of the intangible stuff, so much of the mental stuff, so much of the character stuff that we just don't have any clue about, especially early in a career, is what's really driving the thought for a lot of the people inside those buildings. Like, okay, he's got the talent, but maybe his work ethic isn't there. Maybe he doesn't process very quickly. Maybe he doesn't learn the same way. Maybe we have to teach him to, maybe he's just a straight out jerk. I mean, all of these things. I'm not talking about McCarthy in particular, but that's the stuff where, if they didn't know it before, and sometimes you don't know it before in the due diligence process before a draft, and you find out afterwards, that's a tough spot to be in. But on the flip side, they might be saying, no, this kid, he's works, he's good, he's talented. He just hasn't played enough, and it'll come eventually. You just don't know. We have no idea on these things.
It is very hard to know. I agree. But where I think this is different than, say, RG3, who you've got a bad read through the rookie year of RG3. And many of the kinds of things you're talking about, I believe. The difference here is we want to think that our coach is the quarterback whisperer and that Kevin McCarthy would be able to shape and mold a 21 and now 22-year-old starting. Kevin O'Connell would be able to help mold him in a way that he'd be able to overcome those things. And if you don't show requisite effort, that your coach is going to be out and that the coach is going to put this kid off field in positions to succeed, show him the right habits. Here's what it takes to be a winner, that kind of stuff. So we want to believe that our coach can overcome some of those kinds of things that we can't see on film while we're watching games or recapping games.
All right, let's talk some fantasy today because it is playoff time for most everybody. First of all, before we get to that, and I guess it's a related fantasy question, not that Phillip Rivers is going to be on your highest ranked quarterback list, but how do you think it's going to work out for him?
Apparently, the league has run out of quarterbacks because we're returning to Phillip Rivers. It's if you ever wondered how many viable quarterbacks there are in the NFL, it's however many are on roster right now, plus injured reserve, plus Phillip Rivers would be apparently the answer to that because you find Colts are in such a state now that they're turning to a quarterback who hasn't played in 4 years and 48 weeks. And got to be a sign of just massive desperation. Riley Leonard is your likely starter, by the way, the guy that played last week, and he was not awful. He was not awful last week. He was okay. Do you believe Phillip Rivers, Kevin, is a Hall of Fame quarterback?
I do. And all my listeners know this. I am a huge Phillip Rivers fan. Not a first ballot, but I think he's going to eventually be in the Hall of Fame. I think he was just a tremendous gunslinging competitor, leader, and one of the smartest quarterbacks ever. I remember Peyton Manning. I think this is what first turned me on to Phillip Rivers, hearing Peyton Manning talk about that there's only one guy with Belichick. It was a conversation with Belichick. There's only one guy other than Brady and Manning that they all revere in terms of his intellect, pre-snap, post-snap, and it's Rivers. So, yes, I do. How do you, very much a historian as well? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. 7th all-time in passing yards, and everybody around 7th is already in or going to be in. He's absolutely in. And the people that just, I just shake my head at the people that feel like there's some mandate to win a Super Bowl to get into the Hall of Fame. And maybe it's because I grew up in Minnesota where we don't have any Super Bowl wins. But it's a team sport. And at the end of the day, your quarterback can only do so much. Yes, he's the most important person, but he can only do so much. And, Rivers, I think, did everything he could to put his teams in a position to succeed and get into the playoffs, succeed in the playoffs. But I don't think that should be held against him. And when you've thrown for the 7th most yards, you have a 17-year career, absolutely put him in. I don't think my assumption is that they've told Rivers that they're not going to reset the clock on his Hall of Fame eligibility unless
he's called up to the active roster.
Right. On the practice squad, he will not lose his eligibility.
But he's going to be on the active roster Sunday.
Well, do we know that for sure?
Well, I mean, at the very least, as Riley Leonard's backup, Riley Leonard would go into that game not 100%.
Yeah, but Brett Rippon has been on the team for a while, and I don't know if Rivers is ready, right? So
I don't think Rivers came back to not play, though.
Well, that's where I was going with this. It's just whether, to me, it feels like when, not if. But maybe part of it is also maybe Phillip Rivers wants a couple of weeks to just see what he's got, and if he can.
They don't have time for that. They're in a playoff race.
Okay, that is fair. They do not. You're right, and they really can't afford many, if any, more losses because of the way things have gone for the Colts over the last, basically 2 months after they were the hottest team in the NFL at the start. But is Phillip Rivers necessarily the guy that's going to deliver you a win, as opposed to, I know it sounds absurd, Riley Leonard, who has been on your team all year and again did not look non-functional last week. So I think there's a lot of variables here, but I think Phillip Rivers does play. I just don't think it's going to be this week. And in the meantime, from a fantasy standpoint, Kevin, Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, to me, they're dead against the Seattle defense.
Yeah,
this is
Seattle
just like Max Grosner going in against the Seattle defense. It's the worst possible spot to start. And that also bad news for Jonathan Taylor. Because if you're Seattle, you just play to stop Jonathan Taylor and let Riley Leonard go try to beat you. I think you still have to start Jonathan Taylor, but that's it. So Riley Leonard goes up against Seattle. He gets destroyed this week, and then Phillip Rivers walks in next week because they're not going to have the stomach to go back to Riley Leonard next week. That's my theory.
Okay, that seems fine, but it reminds me because remember when Cleveland traded Flacco to Cincinnati, the first game was against the Packers, and everybody said, "Oh my God, he's going to get killed. He's going to get absolutely killed." And Flacco went on like a 4 or 5 game torch. I mean, he was on fire, and they just had a terrible defense. They'd be in this mix right now if they had held on to some of those. They lost like 39-38, and the scores were they couldn't stop anybody. And now Rivers comes in, and it's different because he hasn't played, and Flacco at least has been playing. But it's like, do you really want to put him out there in his first game against that Seattle defense on the road? Probably not if you can help it. But, yeah. All right. So what about tonight? I mean, you know that our boy, because Charch is a you-know-who fan as well. That would be Kirko, all right? Kirk Cousins. He lit up the Buccaneers last year. You probably have the numbers. I'm going to guess that there were near 800 yards in passing because he had the 500-plus night on a Thursday night game at home. Is it a good matchup for Kirk tonight against Tampa's defense or not?
Not bad, actually. The Tampa secondary was really good at the start of the season. Injuries have certainly been part of that. Over the last 5 weeks, they've given up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers. They've given up the fifth most fantasy points to quarterbacks. You mentioned Kirk Cousins. Last year against Tampa, your numbers are a 4-touchdown, 276-yard game and a 4-touchdown, 509-yard game for Kirk Cousins last year against Tampa. And so, I do think this is a pretty good start. It's been interesting to see who's leaned on. With Drake London out, Kyle Pitts has been on fire lately. And in the 4 Kirk Cousins games, full games this year, Kyle Pitts averaging 8 targets, 6 catches, and 64 yards. Now, every fantasy player in America has been burned at least once by Kyle Pitts. And so I think there's some innate hesitation to start him, but I think you got to put him in your lineup. Pitts. I'll
tell you what, he's still got to be up there in drops, though, right?
I don't have his drop numbers in front of me, but I suspect you're correct because that is a signature move for Kyle Pitts, who he does have that disinterested gene in him, and there are times the ball's coming his way, and you just need that extra effort to haul in the ball. He's like, I don't know, maybe not.
Is Mike Evans back tonight? And if he is he startable?
Expected to play tonight. And Kevin, I've stopped becoming amazed that players who can't play Sunday 4 days later hit the field and look fine. And it happens all the time.
Well, he's been out for a while.
And maybe, so it's not just a 4-day thing, but I mean, he was inactive Sunday, then 4 days later hits the field. And I hope he looks fine. I don't know that he will, but it does happen all the time. And the Bucs might not have the luxury of slowly working Mike Evans back in. You were talking about how the Colts need wins. So do the Bucs. It's mid-December. The Bucs are 1 game over 500. They have no chance at a wild card spot. They have to win their division. And that offense needs a jolt. Man, Baker Mayfield in this offense has looked bad.
Well, he hasn't had his guys. I mean, he hasn't had Evans. He didn't have Bucky Irving, and he didn't have Godwin for a big stretch. But you're right. He has been terrible over the last 2 months without those guys. 0 or 1 touchdown in 6 of the 7
How
about his completion percentage? Have you looked at that? He's like at 51% in his last 4 games.
It's not the Baker Mayfield that we know. The Baker Mayfield we know and love is the guy who wills his teams to win. He's picking up first downs with his legs. He's a gunslinger. It's all the stuff that we love about Baker Mayfield evaporated once Evans got hurt. And yes, the other injuries are certainly a factor. Starting Tez Johnson every week was not supposed to be part of the game plan.
Remember, he was missing Godwin for much of the season as well, and Bucky Irving.
Yes, and Irving's awesome.
He really is.
For just a second, if you don't mind, because
Please.
I think he's as complete a runner as anybody in the league. He's get
so
power,
gifted.
You speed, you get footwork, and he can catch. Scored a receiving touchdown last week. He is just, for all-around running ability, to me, he is in the same conversation as virtually everybody. I put Jahmyr Gibbs sort of on his own level, and maybe Bijan Robinson, who we'll also see tonight. But then it's like Bucky Irving's right there. I mean, he's good. Now, Atlanta, we talked about bad the pass defense has been. The run defense has been good. Last 4 games, they're giving up just 60 rushing yards per game. That's nothing. And if Bucky's going to be sitting at like 60 rushing yards with Rashad White and Sean Tucker giving up part of that 60, that's not ideal. But still, if Bucky Irving's so good, he started in both of his games back, touchdowns in both of his games back. Let's be sure to keep him in lineups, even in a kind of a tougher matchup than the passing game has got for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, because Tampa could be. They've struggled with all of their players being out on offense, a lot of their key players. And if they're getting them all back here for the run, they play Carolina twice in the final 3 weeks. That'll determine the NFC South winner. Back to your running back conversation. I think it's such an interesting conversation because, 4 or 5 years ago, the running back, position was dead for all intents and purposes. And now we've got all of these great running backs. Last year, obviously a near record-setting year. If Barkley had played that last game, who knows? Maybe he would have passed Dickerson. But you mentioned that you think Bucky Irving's right there, and you put Gibbs at the top.
Yeah,
that is an interesting number one. And I'm not going to disagree with you, but it's so debatable with, I think, Barkley, with Jonathan Taylor, with Bijan. Derek, at this point, Derrick Henry is the age, maybe. I don't want to include him on the list, but I probably should. But man, there are some good backs.
There are, and backs that are powering off. But to me, Henry's not in this conversation. And obviously, he's a good running back, but he's got 15 catches this year. Jahmyr Gibbs has 58.
Yeah,
and the dual threat is to me just and what he does.
Fair.
If I told you you got to hand the ball, you need to have an explosive play. You need a 40-yard run from any running back in the NFL. You get to pick who gets the handoff. Which runner would you give the ball to, trying to get an explosive play?
An explosive play, it would be Gibbs. A tough 4 or 5 yard run, maybe Taylor.
Yeah, he's very good that way. And Taylor does lead the NFL in rushing yards. That's not for nothing. But total yards, I think Gibbs, I believe, I don't have this in front of me. If you add together the rushing and the receiving yards, it might be Gibbs right now. It's going to be really close between the two.
Bijan puts the ball on the floor, on the carpet a bunch. He did last week. He did against us early in the season. He did against Miami or a few weeks back. He's got to stop doing that. I think he's got 3 red zone fumbles this year.
Weird that the Falcons keep using Tyler Algier so much, and
he's good.
He is a good player. He deserves the work he gets. But I can tell you from a fantasy standpoint, we hate Tyler Algier getting 12.
Yeah, because he's taking away Bijan's touches.
Yes, he's killing our guy, and you can't really start Algier because he's more than likely going to get you like 25. 30 yards, and that's not going to work. He has to score to have any value. All he does is keep Bijan Robinson from having big games because he siphons off too much work. We hate that.
Charch is joining us, of course. Is Jalen Hurts somebody you can even consider starting?
Well, we will in 2 weeks against the Commanders. I can tell you that much. It's the question for this week. This week is a much thornier question. It's the Raiders, and it sounds like it's the Raiders. This should be easy, but the Raiders aren't half bad against the pass. Last 6 games, opposing passers averaging just 201 passing yards, 1.3 touchdowns. It's the fantasy playoffs. I need a lot more than 201 yards and 1.3 touchdowns. Now, Hurts, of course, has the upside of giving you 2 rushing touchdowns in any game, and that's how you power your way to the second round of the playoffs. But is that going to happen? I don't know. There are so many things wrong with this offense right now, Kevin. The offensive line is a wreck. Lane Johnson is hurt, and he makes the whole line work. Landon Dickerson is constantly in and out of games, getting hurt all the time. The tush pushes effectiveness down markedly this year. The passing from Jalen Hurts has been bad, right? So he's throwing at covered players. He's missing open ones. He's staring down his first read. He's failing balls. A.J. Brown had to make that business decision that we saw on Monday night across the middle of the field because Jalen Hurts threw the ball up too high over his head. And A.J. Brown wasn't gonna take the shot to the ribs.
Jalen got a little unlucky Monday night. I think 2 of the picks weren't on him, and A.J. Brown should have pulled in that touchdown pass. That was his best throw of the night.
It was the best throw of the night. And I'll say this, though. The defender got his arm onto A.J. Brown's right arm and pulled it down. You want A.J. Brown to still be able to outmuscle that ball, but the defender 100%. Made a great play on that throw. Yeah.
All right, a couple questions from
by the way, last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quarterback 10, meaning I think in most leagues you still start him. But don't feel like at quarterback 10, there's a scenario where you could play a hunch. You go Jackson Dart or C.J. Stroud in an easy matchup. I mean, Get Hurts to next week when he can face Washington. That's your payoff game.
All right. I'm going to give you one question from someone who wanted me to ask you this. Jayden Daniels was his starting quarterback, or was an option. Now he isn't. He wants of the following three quarterbacks, who should he add? C.J. Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, or Marcus Mariota?
I would go Stroud against the Cardinals because they're just getting killed against the pass, unless you're a big underdog. You get a Marcus Mariota game where he runs in 1 or 2 touchdowns, throws 1 or 2 touchdowns, which is possible against the Giants. And it makes Mariota, I got Mariota sitting at quarterback 14, and he's the highest out of this group by a margin. But you can, if you just want, I like CJ Stroud as just a safe play if you need it. But, it's the playoffs. You can't live twice. I'm going to switch my answer to Mariota in all regards. Let's just go Mariota against the Giants.
All right, very good. One last one. Is Justin Jefferson startable against the Cowboy defense?
Oh, you know how many yards he has the last 2 games combined?
Horrible.
He has 14. 14. Those are he had two catch. He comes into this week's game off of consecutive 2 catch games. The last 2 years, he had only had two catch games, and now we're doing it in consecutive games coming into this one. But it's Dallas. That's where this gets hard. The easy answer is just sit Justin Jefferson until the Vikings figure this thing out. But it's Dallas. They rank dead last in yards allowed to opposing wide receivers, dead last in touchdowns allowed to opposing wide receivers, dead last in fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. In virtually every game, multiple wide receivers have really good fantasy games against Dallas. So I think you start him here. It's particularly if you need upside. If you're the underdog in your game, you need something to go right. The Dallas defense can give you that opportunity for something to go very right for Justin Jefferson. He is my wide receiver 19 this week, so I say give it a shot. I mean, it's just such a deeply plus matchup for him. I think for most people, particularly underdogs, Justin Jefferson startable.
That point spread's a bit fishy. I think Minnesota keeps this game close, so if I had Jefferson, I would start him. Thank you. We'll talk next week.
Tons of fun. Talk to you next week in the semifinals. Bye-bye.
Paul Charchian, everybody. Max and I will do our NFL power rankings next.
All right, here's what is happening. It is Thursday, everybody. We start off in college football, where Sharon Moore has been fired from his position as the head coach at the University of Michigan for cause. Michigan AD Ward Manuel released the following statement last night. Head football coach Sharon Moore has been terminated with cause effective immediately following a university investigation. Credible evidence was found that Coach Moore engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. This conduct constitutes a clear violation of university policy, and maintains a zero tolerance for such behavior. Biff Poggi has been appointed head football coach in an interim capacity effective immediately. Meanwhile, the Caps, they get back in action tonight following a few days of rest. They will take on the Carolina Hurricanes. That'll be over on 106.7 The Fan. Pregame gets rolling at 6:45 after Grant and Danny. Puck drop set for 7 p.m. Right here on the Team 980, we got Virginia Tech. The Hokies, hoops up against West Carolina. Tip-off set for 7 p.m. Pregame gets rolling right here on the Team 980 at 6:30. Plus, after which, we will take you right into Thursday Night Football between the Bucks and the Falcons as they lock horns for an NFC South matchup. This update is by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us. Turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Pretty sure I'm going to have a smell test pick for tonight's Thursday night game between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. There's a lot on the NFL board that looks fishy this weekend. So tune in tomorrow because I'm going to guess I'm going to have at least 5 or 6 NFL plays this weekend. By the way, they announced that Saturday doubleheader, late in the season. They typically have like 5 games put aside for that Saturday. Then it's been a triple header in recent years, but it's only a double header this year. How about these for back-to-back games on Saturday, December 27th? Houston at Chargers, 4:30. Baltimore at Green Bay in prime time. Now we'll see where the Ravens are at that point. That follows, by the way, a Christmas Day lineup: Dallas, Washington, Detroit, Minnesota, Denver, Kansas City. What's our stadium going to look like on Christmas Day?
I don't even want to think about it.
All right, power rankings. Top 5. Hard to do in the NFL these days, but I actually feel good about my top 5 this week. It's not that there aren't teams that I considered, but not as much as these 5. I think these 5 are the best teams in the NFL. And the order, I like the order too. Rams, 1. They bounced back off the loss to Carolina. They absolutely pounded the Cardinals 45-17. I think they might be the most complete team in the league with an MVP quarterback and an unbelievable future. We should say that. I think we can say this at this point. A future Hall of Fame coach in Sean McVay. Is that crazy? He's won a Super Bowl, been to a Super Bowl and lost.
I don't think it's crazy. He's got
some years left, but
he's
on
gonna
his
make
way
it back at some point.
Yeah. That's kind of nuts, man. Like, even when I think about Kyle, are those guys Hall of Fame? No. What am I talking about, Sheehan? I love Sean and I love Kyle, but you got multiple coaches with multiple Super Bowls like Mike Shanahan, who isn't in the Hall of Fame. No,
fair.
Let me take that away. Rams 1, Packers 2.
Ooh.
Yeah. This team is so good defensively. And Jordan Love, when he is on, he is borderline elite when he plays his best. His issue, of course, has always been consistency and steering clear of the head-scratching throw. But I love the Rams and Packers. I think they're the 2 most complete teams in the league. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I got Seattle at 3, and it's a hesitant 3. Because I just don't trust Darnold that much when we get to the biggest games of the year. But, man, is their defense locked down. And Smith and the Jigba's headed towards an Offensive Player of the Year award. So I put them at 3. Last week, I know I had New England in my top 5, and I have them in my top 5 again. I've got them at number 4. They're an underdog Sunday at home against Buffalo. This is the one they really – I think a win clinches the division because they own the sweep with 3 games left and have a 3-game lead. So a win by New England Sunday clinches the AFC East. I've got New England at 4. And then 5, I put this team in ahead of Buffalo. Buffalo is right there. But Houston right now is a top 5 team in the NFL. They've won 5 games in a row. They have the best defense, the way it's playing right now in the league. I guess you could say Seattle and Denver are close, although Denver recently not as much. Even the Raiders moved the ball a little bit against them. This is the team that I think could absolutely represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, and they've got a shot now to win the division and play at least 1 game at home. So I've got Houston at 5. So Rams, Packers, Seattle, New England, and Houston. What do you have?
Damn it. Unfortunately, we have the same top 5, just in different orders. But I guess we're at that point in the season right now where we know who's legit and kind of who isn't or have questions about. Yeah. So my number 1 team, obviously, the Rams. I'm right there with you. Stafford's playing at an MVP level. Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua are having an incredible season. Blake Corum is having one hell of a year, quiet as it's kept.
Good running back situation there.
Yeah. So, Rams are going to be number 1. Seattle is going to be my number 2 still. The connection between JSN and Sam Darnold is it's like they share the same brain almost sometimes. So give me Seattle. That defense is incredible, and their running back tandem can get to the outside and punch you in the mouth pretty good. Number 3, Green Bay. That Packers defense, they showed me something against Caleb. Caleb was getting away, extending plays, and then their secondary was able to stick with a lot of dynamic receivers that are on the back end for Chicago.
Let me just, I want to interrupt for one second.
Sure.
I felt better about the Bears after the loss Sunday than I have at any point this year. I mean, the Philadelphia game should have been, wake up. They're actually better than we all think.
Mm-hmm.
But Philadelphia is right now,
they're going through it.
They're going through it. And so the game that they played at Lambeau Sunday made me a Chicago believer. What do I mean by that? That they're going to have a chance to hang on and grab a wild card berth. I don't think they're going to win the division, although they play Green Bay a week from Saturday at Soldier Field. That's going to be a massive game. All right, who's 4 for you?
4 is going to be our Houston Texans. Their defense, like you said, 5 in a row. Their defense is incredible. CJ Stroud's coming back from the concussion, so hopefully he's kind of working his way.
He's playing well.
He's doing all right. That offensive line does give me a few questions, but we'll see kind of how it goes in the playoffs. But number 5 for me is going to be New England. I mean, at the top of the league.
Same 5 teams.
I know.
Just a slightly different order.
Yeah.
Because, you could have easily gone with.
I could have thrown Buffalo. I could have thrown Detroit in there.
You could have thrown Detroit in there. You could have thrown Denver in there if you'd wanted to.
I still I feel a type of way about Bo Nix, man.
49ers, right now, I kind of feel like out of all the teams with like 8 or more wins, the 49ers are the right now under the radar team.
Very much so.
Yeah, people don't believe in the 49ers. And you look their last 3 wins, Cardinals, Panthers, okay, at home, Browns.
And you try
their last no, let me rephrase. Their last 5 wins, Falcons, Giants, Cardinals, Panthers, Browns.
Yeah.
The last time they played a good team, the Rams, they got smoked. And the last time they played a good team before the Rams, they got smoked by Houston. That's why people are not believers in the 49ers. Man, they have had the benefit of a schedule, haven't they?
For sure.
I mean, their wins, let me just go through them. Saints, Cardinals, Falcons, Giants, Cardinals, Panthers, Browns. That's 7 of them. And then they did beat the Rams, remember, in that Thursday night game, which was great early in the year. And week 1, if you ever want to see what a head fake week 1 is, although this wouldn't be the head fake example. They beat Seattle on the road in week 1. The head fake example of week 1 would be the Raiders going to Foxborough and beating the Patriots in week 1. All right. Steve Suter next with some film breakdown. You'll enjoy it. Promise. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Every Wednesday on my podcast, Steve Suter comes on with a film breakdown. He gets into it. He's great. Not good. In my opinion, he's phenomenal. I think a lot of you that have listened here agree, and I play some of it back here on the show on Thursday. He is, for those of you who don't know, he calls Maryland football games with Johnny Holiday, has for 6 years now, but he's also one of the greatest punt returners in college football history. Every week we just start off with, what'd you think of the game? Sometimes he doesn't watch the game live. He just goes through the all 22 and breaks it down. So here was his, opening, 15, 16 minutes talking about Washington's overall performance against Minnesota.
After the all 22, I saw the score. I wasn't paying attention play by play when it was on, but I thought I was going to watch really bad film. You think that when it's 31 zip. I don't think I came off after watching the all 22 thinking that I watched really bad film. I think defensively, I think what got them in trouble is they're just too vanilla defensively. I mean, they played zone coverage like they've been doing now since Dan Quinn's calling plays, but a vanilla style of that zone defense, weren't doing much up front. Third down, different play calls that we went over last week with the Broncos, and I think the Vikings were able to take advantage of it. It wasn't like the Vikings were gashing them and just pushing the Washington defenders off the line of scrimmage. That's not the feel I got. It was more die a slow death. 4 yards here, 3 yards here, 5 yards here, convert a third down, convert a third and 6, 4 more yards, 3 more yards. And so I didn't have as many negative plays graded throughout the defense that I thought I was going into the film.
Wow.
But I think, but that's who they are, right? They're playing zone defense now. They have guys out of position up front constantly. You have Newton playing DN, and you go put Payne at DN, and you put Kinlaw at DN, and then you just got guys in there that shouldn't be on the field, right? We went over that too, but they have to play them because they don't have another option. So you try to play the bend but don't break, but they were breaking. I mean, they had chances to get off the field, hold Vikings to field goals, but they were converting those first downs and turn them into touchdowns. They're a field goal defense now. That's Washington. I think you should think going on the field every possession, if you're watching the team, if they hold the team to 3, then they did their job, and that might be every possession. But they weren't able to get off the field, couldn't hold them to the field goals. They were turning touchdowns. So defensively, it was just like you were just watching a team on the field, but it's not like they did blow some coverages here and there, but it wasn't for 50 yards and 25 yards and big 30-down plays. They were just not making enough plays within first and second down and third down to get them off the field. Then offensively, I would say just a rough performance all around and it really starts from the quarterback position. Jayden had a rough game, in my opinion. We'll go over some plays there. I think play calling didn't help all that much here. I think Flores, I guess you could say he had Kingsbury's number this game. He probably won that matchup. And then in the run game, probably didn't run enough. Probably should have ran some more. That's the strength, I think, of this team. So offensively, although I really liked the way they handled the first drive. So almost primarily the entire first half would put 6 and 7 guys mugged up on the line of scrimmage, some in three-point stands, some not, and making Washington try to determine who's coming and who's dropping. And they did that the entire first drive, and Washington did a good job of handling it. They weren't gashing it or picking it apart by any means, but they were handling it enough and moving the chains to get themselves down to a 4th and goal situation. So that was impressive. The Vikings did that throughout the entire first half and into the third quarter. And there's a bunch of plays I want to go over with you, especially in the 2-minute nice little chess match that I see between Flores and Kingsbury in that aspect of the game. But offensively, just not making plays, right? Not making plays when they needed to make plays. Debo, you got to make that catch. It's a 7-7 ball game. Then who knows what happens? And avoid the Vikings go on a 12-minute just die a slow death drive, which was crazy to watch. You just like, man, they can't get off the field when they had chances. Put them into a 3rd and 12 there on that possession too. They could have got off the field. I don't think Noah was in the right position there to help on that Jefferson screen, which is a good play call by the Vikings. But I mean, not fun film to watch for sure, but not as terrible as you would think from a 31-0 standpoint, especially on defense. But when your offensive players at QB running the helm aren't really helping you offensively into the second quarter and throughout, you're not going to have a chance to win.
That's first of all, the defensive thing is so interesting because I get what you're saying. You're essentially saying, unlike in previous blowouts, they're not getting gashed every play. They're not giving up the big explosives. So they're methodically, going through them. Look, the 19 play, 98 yard, 12-minute, 1 second drive was the longest drive Minnesota's had this century in football. So in 25 years, so you literally you're standing watching this thing. And by the way, I love the way you said that 7-7. Who knows? Debo's that was a drop, right?
Yeah, that's a drop. I mean, he just gets a little bit tripped up as he's going down, and I think it messed up his hand-eye coordination. But it's 4th and 2. You're a big-time player. You want to be. It's a big-time throw by Jayden. It's his last read. He goes play side, front side. He has nothing. And Debo's the last read on that play. So it's all or nothing. It's him or nobody, or Jayden's going to have to tuck it and try to do something. And he throws the ball when he's not covered, when he is covered. It's a crazy ball. And Debo's got to make a big play, and he doesn't make it. And it's 7-7 there.
Yeah, I mean,
you're in the game you want to be in.
Yeah, I think, these games, and you do such a good job when you call games of, like, the whole context of it. I'm not saying they would have won the game because they literally couldn't get off the field. Minnesota was 5 for 5 on third down in the first half. This was the 31st ranked third down offense in the league, and they were 6 for their first 7. And whether they were doing it with gash plays or not, they were keeping the football. But it's amazing when you think about these games, the fine line between look, they got blown out, but on the game. But to your point, 7-7 after matching their opening drive with what would have been a 15-play, 85-yard drive that would have taken 8.5 minutes. It feels totally different. I mean, you're in the second quarter, 7-7. I mean,
and it was impressive. Like they were handling that 6 and 7 front look, which is they were testing. I mean, that's a clear. Florida's like, I'm going to test you and your offensive line. I'm going to see how good your communication is. Can you identify who I'm bringing, who I'm not? I mean, really tricky stuff. And they handled it. They handled it that whole first drive and got in scoring position. So it's an impressive drive. It might not look. It wasn't flashy. It didn't look good to the common person watching because they didn't do anything dramatic. But for me, watching them being able to convert first downs against a defense that was doing those types of things was impressive. So you're 7-7 there. You get them to 3rd and 12, and I know they had that long drive, but you still got them to 3rd and 12 outside the red zone, and you gave up the screen to Jefferson, and then they go and score. Maybe that's only 10-7 there, and it's still a ball game. I thought it was still a ball game 7 minutes into the third quarter. You're only down 14-0, right? Coming out of halftime.
Yeah.
And you have the ball. I mean, it's still a game.
And they drove it down. I mean, they had 4 drives with Jayden in the game. They drove it into the red zone twice. I do want to go back to, as part of this overview, you're going to get to Jayden and break down his game. But I want to focus on the 1st and goal at the 4 on their opening drive, because this has gotten a lot of conversation this week as it relates to Cliff Kingsbury. And you mentioned you thought Flores got the better of Cliff. I didn't think it was a good Cliff game either. I think fans felt like you're running the ball at nearly 8 yards per pop with Rodriguez, and you're 1st and goal at the 4, and you run them on 1st and goal, and then it's 3 straight passes. So can we go through that sequence, those 4 plays,
sure.
including, by the way, the 1st and goal? Because I wanted to ask you a question. Jayden didn't have one designed run call in the game, not one, I don't think, option run either, unless you think this 1st and goal at the 4 is a zone read. I didn't think it was, and I don't think it was in the game plan to use Jayden as a runner in any capacity other than a scrambler. Like he was in a bit of a protective, mode. They were with him. Was 1st and goal from the 4 a zone read, or is it a straight give to Rodriguez?
This is a give all the way for me.
Okay.
I would agree with your assessment. They didn't have any zone reads where it was an option for him to run. And that's probably the right decision, but you do handicap yourself a little bit from a play calling standpoint and an offensive standpoint. So if you're going to go into a game handicap, then that's the decision you're making. But this is a zone read for sure. He's not pulling here based off the lineman.
This is not. It's not a zone read. Yeah.
Sorry, not a zone read. Yeah, this is a give all the way.
Yeah.
And you get 2 yards. It doesn't even like you get stoned. So I'm on the same page. You got. All right, if you're going to look at the roster of this team, the 2 best positions on the team, in my opinion, are the offensive line, if you want to consider them one, and then the running backs, shockingly. Right? I don't think these guys came out of nowhere.
Right.
Rodriguez and McNichols, to me, are really good backs. That's the best position on your team. You can
really good backs. I mean, I like Rodriguez a lot, but, you've seen this year Achan and Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. They're not.
Yeah, that's top tier.
Yeah.
I'm not putting them in the top tier.
Yeah, just making sure.
I'm putting them in adequate NFL starting running back.
Okay.
These guys can run the football, and the best part about them is their pass block. Like McNichols is one of the best third down backs. I guess I can't say it's definitively because I don't watch all the film of everybody else, but from what I've seen, this dude doesn't miss blitz pickups almost ever. And in the season, he's had several third and longs where he's caught a check down and converted a first down. So he's capable with hands. He's got a little shake. You've seen him break tackles, but he's most impressive is his ability to mesh with the offensive line and blitz pickup. He's really good at that. So from that standpoint,
is Rodriguez capable as a pass blocker?
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
He'll stick his nose in there too. I got no issue with him picking up a blitz.
Right.
Or maintain the block in space. And I think that's why he is on the field in first and second downs.
Right.
Because he can do that, because you can't tee off on him. I think the struggles of Bill, and I don't want to say he's struggling, but I think, and I get the feel of every game I watch, I think the defense is more on their toes coming downhill when Bill's in the game. I'm almost positive. I don't look at the stats. I know we went over one time and it was split 19 and 19 or something, but it is leaning more and more towards when he's in the game, it's a handoff. And you got to be able to get away with that or get away from that, or you're just going to keep putting yourself in a bind offensively. So that's why I don't think some of the runs are popping for Bill, for the offensive line to block when he's in the game because the defense is anticipating runs. And when you see it all the time, right? 3rd and 1s are hard to get when the defense knows you're running. So if you even put that at 1st and 10 and I know you're running, it's going to be hard for you to run. So I think that's some of the struggles there.
That's interesting. But do you I think he's had some good runs the last couple of weeks. I like Rodriguez more. I do. But I think Krosky Merritt has some he's not a negative when he's out there, even if they know he's running.
Don't disagree with that either. My thing with him and what I think he needs to evolve into is he needs a little bit more style in his running. He's one-dimensional right now, the way I watch him, and it's a good dimension. It's hard. He wants to run fast and hard. Great qualities in a running back, but not great qualities every play in a running back. You need just a little bit more style. I think Rodriguez can get shifty in a hole. I can jump cut a little left when the play's not there. More so. I'm not saying Bill can't do those things, but I think Rodriguez shows a little bit more of all of those things. And that's why he's a little bit more effective as a runner. And even if you want to argue Bill's a better runner, then the difference is Rodriguez is a better pass blocker. And I don't think the gap between them two as runners is as great as the gap between them in blitz pickup. So for that reason, you keep Rodriguez in or you keep McNichols in.
Well, Rodriguez, too, is a much better after contact runner.
Yeah, he's just balanced, right? It's another style. It's just he's balanced when he's getting hit versus like Bill wants to run through everybody, but that's not how you break every tackle. I mean, it's a science to it. It's just breaking tackles and running in holes. There's a science to it, and the good ones are great at it, and others are just okay at it. And he can get better, but that's just my observation of him as a runner. Just needs a little bit more patience and style.
Yeah, I like Rodriguez too. And Rodriguez is he's a big dude. I mean, he's 225, 230,
Yeah.
All right, back to that sequence that I wanted to go through. Okay, so first, the 2-yard run to kick it off is not a zone read. So let's get to 2nd and goal, the Brandon Coleman tackle eligible throw.
Yeah, so everybody's been paying attention to me, I've been waiting. Where's the sixth lineman? Where's the extra lineman?
Right.
They don't run it anymore except on goal line. Bring in the sixth lineman. They're very good at that, whether it was Coleman or Scott. I think they were both decent at adding that extra element. This isn't how I wanted you to bring in the sixth lineman.
Right.
This isn't it.
Yeah.
This isn't. I mean, this is just getting too cute. I mean, it's a tackle eligible play. He's running a corner route off this play action. He's probably ran this route 3 times all season, maybe only twice this week. They maybe just put it in. And, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the point is this guy's not going out and practicing running these corner routes. And I think it's just, you're trying to get too cute. You just got 2 yards on first down. It's 2nd and 2. This would have been 4 downs of running for me with this offense,
right? With
the strength of this offensive line, this running game, and using Jayden as a dimension. Now, they may have went in and Dan Quinn gave specific orders. You're not going to use him as a running threat at all. And maybe Kingsbury thought that handicapped him too much down here in the goal line that he needed to get cute and throw the football. But I don't think that's the way you go about it. You try to run this football. I mean, Jayden, when he comes off this play action and he starts the boot, he could plant his foot in the ground at the 10-yard line. And you could argue Coleman is open. You could argue that for sure. But then you could also say when he plants, Coleman is engaged with that corner, Murphy.
Right.
He's engaged with him. Do I trust my tackle to swim move Murphy and win on a corner route that he's ran 3 times in his life? So I totally understand him eating this. This is probably for Jayden and maybe even the coach staff when they practice. This is, if he's butt naked, you toss it to him. If he's not, then you don't throw a jump ball to a corner versus a tackle. I wouldn't do that either. So I don't have an issue with him not tossing this up because it wasn't wide open. And I just think it's a bad play call. I mean, it would have been really cool in the Sports Center highlight. Look at this tackle.
Let me just tell you, Jayden's very first touchdown pass as a rookie last year, Monday Night Football against the Bengals, tackle-eligible touchdown pass to Trent Scott.
There you go.
But he was wide open. Wide open.
You know what I like better is a speed, like fake a speed option with Jayden involved, running towards the tackle-eligible player.
And then let him slip.
Then it's more believable, right? Then Murphy's going to come up. He's going to think it's a run because it's a run his way.
Yeah.
It's not boot away. So Murphy doesn't care that much. He doesn't care that much about this run action away from him. He's a corner on the goal line, and run is going away from him. Why would he care? So I just think it's poor play design. You think Murphy, backside corner, is going to be affected that much on this play action pass that Coleman's going to get by him? And he almost does. He does. Almost works.
So it's interesting about this play because when I first watched it and I came in here and did kind of the post-game show, I was like, I don't know if that's a miss by Jayden or just, it's a tackle and if he lets it go, he's got to let it go early. And then the tackle, you got to rely on a tackle to basically, when he turns, the ball's already in the air. And then, by the way, Eric Wilson is in his face pretty quickly. So you think that this is bad play design and that Jayden tossing it out was okay? You didn't ding him for the play?
I didn't ding him for the play, no. If this is complete, he's got to float this thing almost to the back corner of the end zone, and everybody's going to hold their breath and watch Coleman try to track it down. And maybe it works, and maybe it would, but...
You know what would have worked better? Handing the ball off to number 36.
Yeah,
all right, so let's go to 3rd and goal at the 2. First question before you give me the play. Did you see Ertz held by Van Ginkel, 43?
I didn't initially, no. Cheeky hold here. I'm watching it right now. Yeah, this is a cheeky hold. See, this play, I think the play call is outmatched for the defensive play call because Ertz and I believe it's Bates. Yeah, Ertz and Bates, they're running zone routes here and just sitting down. I think they expected a totally different coverage here, and they just squat. And let's say the play was for them to become post defenders or offensive centers and box these dudes out and expect a quick hit and throw. They didn't get that. I think they were getting blitzed here. These guys are going to be quick hitters, and they wanted to hit. Oh yeah, see, they want a little angle route with Ertz. You see Ertz? He wants to run a little anger out, but he can't win on this coverage because it's not really man coverage.
And he also gets grabbed.
And then he gets grabbed, but nothing's holding the flat defender up on the top of the screen. They're doubling.
Right.
Doubling Noah because there's no flat presence.
Yeah.
So that's dead. Bates is dead. Ertz is dead. Terry, technically wins down here on the slant, but he's looking front side this whole time. He's not even concerned with Terry. So he's got to scramble here. So it's just a play call that doesn't match the defense that you thought you were going to get. So then you got to, check the floors. He wins that matchup.
Okay. We move to 4th and goal. 4th and goal.
Right. You're throwing again.
Yeah, take me through it.
Yeah. So it's really good by Jayden. He wants to read front side like he does. He doesn't have Ertz right away in the flats. They're taking away. They're in cover 2. Cover 2 down the goal line is very hard to throw against because you've got, any plays. It's hard to pass in the red zone because of the end zone. It's all condensed. He doesn't have his first look, which is Noah. Terry's running through the middle of the field. He's covered. The only play now, he's got to come to a backside. Last read, Debo, who's running a dig on the end of the end zone. He's not open when he throws this football. He needs to trust Debo's going to get around that safety, and he's got to throw a perfect football, and I think he does. He pulls it off. So really good read by Jayden. He went through his progression, and he throws a really difficult football under pressure, 4th and 2, and Debo's got to come up with that.
Yeah, Debo's got to catch that. What? It's like the turf. It's like he started to stumble a little bit.
Yeah, a little turf monster caught his toe, threw his hand-eye coordination off, and he ended up dropping it. Maybe he kicked that safety's toe too. Maybe they kicked feet. It's hard to see on all 22, but still hits him in his hands. It's 4th and 2. You want to be a big player, you got to make a big play.
So there's a little bit more from Suter that I want to play for you because there was something that I thought was very interesting. He definitely believes that Kingsbury got outwitted by Brian Flores in this game. But there's one thing more than any other that he mentioned to me that I want to play for you. It's about 3.5 minutes of him explaining the snap count problems that Washington had on Sunday against Minnesota. I'll play that for you when we come back. Also, not sure if you heard what Joe Burrow said yesterday, but it sounds like he's not excited right now. Smell test pick 2 for Thursday Night Football before we wrap things up today. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. So there's one other part of the film breakdown from Suter that I wanted to play for you, and it's about 3.5, 4 minutes. But there was definitely with Steve, he said there were just some things where it was very obvious that Washington wasn't, they were being a bit outwitted by Joe Witt Jr., not by Joe Witt Jr., by Brian Flores. Flores was outwitting Kingsbury over and over again. And he focused on one particular aspect of the game. Jonathan Grenard's one of their edge pass rushers. I asked a friend of mine to send me his PFF grade. He had the third highest PFF grade from the game for Minnesota defensively, and the third highest pass rush grade as well. But he was timing up the snap, and you'll hear Steve explain it to you. The real concern here is that they obviously didn't pick up on it. Washington didn't, and so there was never an adjustment. But here's what Steve said about it.
The fundamental night and day changed the outcome of some of these plays just off snap count. So let's go to 5 minutes, 33 seconds in the second quarter. And this is the stuff, I don't really love this stuff. When you have the guards looking back at the quarterback, getting the indication that they're ready to receive the snap, you give the indicator to the center, and they go about the cadence. Washington was just too easy to time this up. If you watch Jonathan Grenard, number 58, he was teeing off on these snap counts almost the entire game. And it didn't make sense to me. So watch this first play.
Oh, my God, I'm watching it right now. Yeah.
He gets such a jump.
Let me just explain what you were just saying. Cosme, we've all seen it, especially the road team, when it's a loud, crowd for the defense. And Cosme is going to indicate to Biotish that we're now going into the snap. And Grenard's the outside edge. And, go ahead from there.
So they needed to – all right, I'll give you the first time. All right, we do this the first time. Cosme gives a signal. Biotish does the head drop. He does this little head drop and then snaps it immediately after. Well, this is like, Grenard must watch tape. He sees this cadence is probably once Biotish dips his head, that snap's coming right away, and he's going to take off on this first one. So they do it this first time. Bates has no chance at blocking Grenard right here, and this could have been a decent run. This is blocked really well interiorly. Cosme does. Biotish is turning. If this is going to be Rodriguez on Murphy.
This is a running play to Rodriguez, just so everybody knows. Yes, I see it.
It's 5 yards, but it could have been a lot bigger. If he doesn't, Grenard makes a tackle. If he doesn't have to deal with him, it's him versus Murphy.
Yeah.
And that 5 yards could be 15, 20, maybe more. But that's just from a snap count. All right, but I'll give you that, right? You got us.
Okay.
Well, the very next play at 4:57. Very next play, same thing. They don't change. So, in my opinion, Bates should have gone back to the huddle and said, hey, Jayden, Grenard is on our snap count. I got no chance to block him. You got to switch up the cadence. Well, they don't do it. So they get this another jump. Grenard is gone.
Oh, my God. Look at
Connerly has no chance to block right there. Now, this play's broken down. And he's got Terry up top on a little 5-yard out. He's going to get the first down. This is 3rd and 5. This is critical.
Yeah.
This is about staying on the field or not staying on the field, and it could all have been solved by just going on 2. Grenard's getting this jump. So now, if I'm Connerly, you should be going back to the huddle or on the sideline because now you're punting and saying, hey, guys, Grenard is on our snap count. We need to switch it up. I would think the coaches should be seeing this in the film. Like, dang, look at that jump he's getting. We need to switch up the cadence. But I didn't see that.
I mean,
what happened?
One time going on 2, or if you were going on 2, going on 3, and Grenard's going to be in the neutral zone, and he's not going to do it anymore. He's going to get flagged.
Yeah, correct.
There were 5 plays that he ended up pointing out with Grenard, 4 or 5 plays, where he just timed up the snap count, and it was the exact same thing that they did. And is that, as he said, somebody's got to tell Jayden, we can't block Grenard cadence and this same snap count. So is it on Jayden to change the snap count? Maybe it's his fault, but it certainly has to be something that the offensive coordinator and the offensive coaches see so that you don't let Grenard ruin 4 or 5 plays in the game. The first one he showed me, that's a 10, 15-yard run for Rodriguez. Move the sticks. The second one was their second drive of the game. Their first drive was the 4th and goal miss. This was their second drive of the game. They've already picked up 1 first down. And no, this is their second drive of the game. Excuse me. It's 3rd and 5. And Jayden's got no shot because Connerly Jr. gets beat by Grenard off the snap, and Terry's wide open. And he's going to look right at Terry. He's turning, and he's going to turn back the other way. He's got no chance to do it. So what's the takeaway from this? The takeaway is against the more complex defensive teams, they've had some issues with Kingsbury. The more vanilla teams, they tend to rip apart. Or the teams that are more complex, they've had some issues with. Minnesota's very complex, super complex. Seattle can be super complex with Mike McDonald. So, pass protection and handling pass rush and having a plan for it. Part of the plan is cadence. You can't go on one every single time if Jonathan Grenard is sizing it up and getting a jump on your tight end or your right tackle over and over again. It will disrupt and end plays and end series. That could be on the quarterback. I mean, we ended up talking about this, and he said it could be if Jayden's got to see it. If Bates and Connerly Jr., if people are coming back and saying, hey, he's timing it up, he's got 1 every time, we got to switch the snap count. But you would certainly think that the coaches would have seen it and done something in-game about it. We talked about on Monday that there were just tons of immediate pass rush pressures. Well, that's one of the reasons for it. Didn't know that on Monday. Suter helped us out with it. They were jumping the cadence. Grenard was. If it sounds like I'm frustrated with the offensive coordinator, I am about Sunday's game. I am. I'm also very impressed with what he did against Denver because I thought they had a great game plan against Denver. When we come back, Joe Burrow was very kind of reflective, self-reflective about his career, all of his injuries. I want you to hear what he said, and I've got a smell test pick for tonight's Thursday night game. We'll do that next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. I do want to tell you about Window Nation and their end-of-year sale. It's still going on until the end of the year when you still have a chance to get windows and any window style for 50% off. So you'll be paying half price on all windows. That's an offer you shouldn't turn down if you've been thinking about new windows, but there's more. And the more is if you want to finance the purchase, they won't charge you interest, 0% interest for 5 years. So the moment you start paying interest, the new stadium is going to be opening at RFK, or we're going to be right around the corner from it. Anyway, if you've been thinking about new windows, really what I want you to do is just give Window Nation a chance by calling them at 866-90-NATION or heading to windownation.com and scheduling a free in-home estimate. You don't have to commit to anything. They're not going to pressure you. You'll actually find out which windows really are too old, really aren't working well for you, really are costing you money on your heating bills and air conditioning bills. And then you can choose what to do after they leave you with the quote. The quote will be half price on everything. If you choose to finance it, they won't charge you interest for 5 years. They'll offer a lifetime warranty on the windows, and they'll promise to be in and out of your home in 1 day when they come out to install the new windows. I trust Window Nation. They've been around for a while. I've been working with them for 16 years now. They've installed over 3 million windows across the country. They have over 45,000 five-star reviews, an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, and a 96% customer satisfaction rating. This sale ends soon. Don't wait to put an end to your windows. Schedule a fast, free estimate right now at windownation.com.
All right, happy went Thursday, everybody. We start off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their TJ Watt is currently in the hospital undergoing medical evaluation of his lung. A statement from the team, quote, TJ Watt currently in a hospital for further medical evaluation of his lung after experiencing discomfort at the practice facility on Wednesday. He will not be at practice on Thursday, and his status for Monday night's game versus Miami is in question. Coach Tomlin will provide more updates at the appropriate time. To college football. After schools are learning of Notre Dame's memorandum of understanding that grants the Irish preferential playoff access starting next year, athletic directors in other leagues are threatening to freeze out Notre Dame of future schedules. That's per Dan Wolken. And then moving on to the Washington Capitals. They get back in action tonight following a few days reset. They will take on the Carolina Hurricanes over on 106.7 The Fan. Pregame gets started at 6:45 following Grant and Danny. Puck drop set for 7 p.m. Right here on the Team 980, we've got Virginia Tech Hokies going up against West Carolina. Tip-off set for that game at 7 p.m. Pre-game gets rolling at 6:30, plus right after which we will take you into Thursday Night Football between the Bucs and the Falcons as they lock horns in an NFC South matchup. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command in Denton's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us. Turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
If I want to keep doing this, I have to have fun doing it. I've been through a lot, and if it's not fun, then what am I doing it for? So that's the mindset I'm trying to bring to the table.
Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it seemed frustrating.
There's just a lot of things going on right now.
Football related, personally?
All the above. Like you said, there's nothing. All we can do is focus week to week and try. I don't think anybody's really thinking about the playoffs right now. That's within reach, but on our fingertips. So we just got to keep doing what we're doing and try to get better.
That was Joe Burrow, Cincinnati's quarterback. He signed a 5-year, $275 million contract in 2023. It included a $40 million signing bonus and $219 million guaranteed. He still has left on the contract, the actual contract, another 4 years on the contract with the Bengals. Or I'm sorry, 3 legitimate years, 3 plus the end of this season. Joe Burrow's been hurt a lot, man. He, got hurt when you go back to his, first games in the pros, November 22nd, 2020, COVID, the Cincinnati Bengals are at FedEx Field, and there's that massive hit on the side on a run down by the goal line. Man, we've had a lot of quarterbacks injured on that field. Suffered a partial tear to his PSL, was placed on injured reserve and shut down for the remainder of that season. That was his rookie year. The next year, he suffered a broken finger. He suffered a twisted knee in 2022, an MCL sprain in the Super Bowl in the final few minutes. In 2023, a right calf strain cost him games. Right wrist injury, if you recall, in that Week 11 game in 2023 against the Ravens, cost him the rest of that season. Early this season, he suffered a turf toe injury and a ligament injury, needed surgery. Many thought he'd still be out until about right now. He came back a few weeks ago. Joe Burrow is 29 years old, 28 years old. I think he's a really interesting and very introspective every time you hear him interviewed guy. I've mentioned this before, but I thought he was the best part of the quarterback series over the summer, the Netflix quarterback series. He's different. He's very interested. He's very curious. He's into a lot of nerdy things, like science-related things. What I can't gather from that sound is Joe Burrow contemplating early retirement, or does he want to get traded? Does he want to leave the Bengals and play for somebody else? Sounded like a guy who's got a lot going on. The interesting thing is, if they had won on Sunday, and they had a very good opportunity in the snow game against Buffalo, 39-34. So his first start back is the Thanksgiving night game against the Ravens, and they torched the Ravens 32-14. Then he is playing hellacious football. This apparently, and I didn't watch it because our game was going on at the same time. I mean, I had it on one screen, but wasn't paying attention to it. But this was, for some, the game of the year. I mean, Josh Allen was incredible. Joe Burrow was incredible, but Burrow threw a crippling interception that got returned for a touchdown. When they had the lead in the fourth quarter, they ended up losing the game 39-34, which for all intents and purposes ends their potential playoff lives. They're still mathematically alive at 4-9, if you can believe it. That's because of the division they play in. They have the Ravens this week in Cincinnati. Then they play Miami, the Cardinals, and the Browns. So they could go, they could win out to go 8-9. But at this point, they'd obviously need the Ravens and more so the Steelers to fall apart as well. And the Steelers still have the Browns and the Dolphins, although the Dolphins are playing really well. That Monday night game in Pittsburgh is going to be, I think, the coldest game for Tua and the Dolphins in a regular season game. Their coldest playoff game was that game against the Chiefs at Arrowhead a few years ago when it was, I think, 4 below zero at kickoff. Interesting situation with Joe Burrow. I mean, Cincinnati would be a tough organization to be in as an elite level quarterback, which I think he is. I'm a big Joe Burrow fan, huge Joe Burrow fan. All right. Smell tests for Thursday night. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, and I'm sure you think it has something to do with Kirk Cousins. It has nothing. I've never, ever given out a smell test pick on my favorite team or any of my favorite players because it's my favorite team or my favorite player. In fact, more times than not, I've gone against my favorite team in the smell test. I was 5-2 last week. I'm now 49 units over 500 for the season. An insane year that I'm having. And I keep saying, and I do believe this will happen at some point, but the opportunity for it to happen is getting less and less because there will be fewer picks because there's no more full slates of college football. I do give out bowl games every once in a while. But last week, 5-2 with the incredible Raiders finish to get me the Raiders cover and for the game to go over. This line is bounced around at 4.5. I was, there was no doubt I was giving it out. The line's now up to 5.5 in a lot of spots. So the line's moved around a lot, but this is a heavily, heavily bet public game tonight. The public loves Tampa. They consider it to be a must game for the Buccaneers. The Bucs have really struggled with some of their injuries in the last month and a half with no Mike Evans. Godwin was out for some of these games. They've had some defensive injuries, some O-line injuries, and Mayfield has really, really played poorly because of it here in the last few weeks. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games, and their only win was a 3-point win over the Cardinals. But they're sitting here tied with Carolina. They play the first of 2 over the final 3 weeks with Carolina next Sunday in Charlotte. Tonight is a bit of a trap game for the Buccaneers. They lost a trap game against the Saints on Sunday, but they were a big favorite, so it wasn't that much of a trap game. This line seems to be too short. The Falcons got smoked last week by the Seahawks. Now, that game was 6-6 at halftime, and Seattle ran the opening kickoff of the second half back for a touchdown. And then with Atlanta threatening in the red zone to tie the game, Bijan Robinson fumbled. And then Seattle took it down, scored, and it was kind of game over. And the rest of it was, a 2-score game where Atlanta couldn't get back into it. 37-9 was the final. So they don't have Drake London, their best player on offense. Again, he's going to miss his 4th straight game. Nobody's giving the Atlanta Falcons much of a shot. I think they might win the game outright, plus 5.5. But I definitely like them plus 5.5. It's a major, major anti-public play tonight. One of the biggest on the NFL board this Sunday. And Kirk did have, the games he had last year against Tampa. The first one was a Thursday night game last year. And in that game, he threw for over 500 yards. He set the Atlanta Falcons franchise record in that game with 509 passing yards on 42 of 58 with 4 touchdown passes, including one in overtime to beat the Bucs 36-30. In his game in Tampa, he was 23 of 29 for 276, 4 touchdowns, no picks. So 8 touchdowns, no picks. And in the 2 games, 785 yards passing and 77% completion percentage. So he had the Bucs number last year. Let's see if it happens again. Now he doesn't have Drake London. That's a big deal for them. Atlanta plus the 5.5, first smell test pick of the weekend. Also kind of like the under in this game. But not an official pick. All right, boys and girls, that's it for Thursday. Back tomorrow, full football Friday show. We'll preview the Giant game if you care. More smell test picks. We'll go around the NFL. There are a bunch of meaningful games this weekend, some huge games on Sunday. You get, how about this for a 4:25 game? Packers at Broncos. Also in that 4:25 window, Lions-Rams. And then Sunday in the 1 o'clock window, you get Bills-Patriots. Chiefs-Chargers, too. This will be an elimination game. I think if the Chiefs lose, they are officially out Sunday against the Chargers. All right, back tomorrow. Chris is next.